started now. Time is tight, so I think today's we got a chance to invite the expert from the FHWA, and one is Chris and one is Monica. And not Chris is local, right? Monica is from Texas. So I briefly introduced them, and then they're going to talk about the FHWA's Sustainable Payment Program and future outlook. So first introduce the Chris Wagner is the team manager and also the team lead for FHWA Payment and Materials Technical Service Team. Basically kind of covering entire 50 states. And his main areas of expertise including implementation of the asphalt technology and the mechanistic and empirical payment design guide. He has worked with all 50 state highway agencies in the development, deployment, and adoption of this technology. And the Monica Jurado is the research center contact for the Sustainable Payments Program and a member of Sustainable Payment Technical Working Group. She has an intensive experience in field transportation and non-destructive testing. She served as the Resources Center lead for the SHOP 2, RO6, and which is payment infrared projects. And she worked as the research engineer under the FHWA Professional Developmental Program at the Turner Fairbank Highway Research Center. And where she worked with the portable seismic property analyzer and the accelerated load facility. As an area engineer for the New Mexico division, she served as a local public agency coordinator for the New Mexico states and payment and material collateral duties. So with that, please join me welcome Chris and Monica to their talk.
Good morning.
Hi.
It's great to be back. I think it's been 2 years, Dr. Zai, since we've been here. And it's good to talk to you guys about the sustainable payments. I'm not going to be talking about sustainable payments. I'll leave that up to my expert on my team, Monica. I'd just like to say a little bit about who Federal Highway is as a part of an introduction. Once again, I'm Chris Wagner. I'm the team manager for the Federal Highway Resource Center Payments and Materials team. Okay, so we do a lot of things, but a little bit about Federal Highway Administration. Have y'all heard of us, Federal Highway Administration? Okay, you might have heard of us. We're actually a pretty small group. We only have about 2,500 people. We're scattered across all 50 states. So we have an office in all 50 states, DC and Puerto Rico. We were formed in 1956. President Eisenhower signed the bill creating the Highway Trust Fund. That's how we get it funded. A little bit of history. President Eisenhower, he was actually part of the 1915 transcontinental convoy, where it took about 15 months to travel from Maryland to California. Okay, so it took a long time before we had an interstate to get around this country. He also served in World War II, and he saw the Germans had the Autobahn, right? We're kind of the first country to build a massive infrastructure, highway infrastructure. And he saw the need for that both for defense purposes and for the economy, to move people and goods around the country very fast. So he saw the need for that, so in 1956, with Congress support, signed the Highway Trust Fund. Fast forward to today, we get about the last Highway Trust Fund bill was signed was about $225 billion over 5 years. That equates to about $49 billion per year. Of that, Georgia DOT gets what, Andrew? 1.1 billion, something around that?
Yes.
Something around 1.1 total of federal dollars spent on highways from federal highway back. So it is a user fee. So every time you pump a gallon of gas into your car, 18.2 cents goes to the Federal Highway Trust Fund, and then redistributed back to the state. So it's definitely my salary, Monica's salary, everything we do comes from the gas tax that's included in our bill. So we're responsible. We work with the states. We provide stewardship and oversight with the states. The state DOTs own the road. We make sure the state DOTs spend the federal money in accordance with what Congress sets out in the regulations, rules, and requirements. So we work hand in hand. We have an office in all 50 states, work hand in hand with the states to meet federal requirements. Like I said, we have approximately 2,500 people within Federal Highway. There's our main offices. We have about half the people work in DC, work on legislation and different things. We have a research group, Turner Fairbanks Highway Research Center in Arlington, Virginia, near Washington, D.C. We have a research group there. As I said, we have 50 offices. Georgia happens to be about the 6th largest program, so they have about 40 people in the Georgia Division Office of Federal Highway. Each state office, each division office has an office in each state. We are the resource center. I have a team of 10 in pavement materials, Monica being leading sustainability program. We have about 150 people within the resource center in Federal Highway. Safety, design, operations, environment, pavements and materials being one, geotech, hydraulics. So we have 13 teams spread across many functional areas. Pavements and materials, we have 10 people on my team. And then kind of a unique portion is federal lands. They manage all the projects on federal lands within the country. Not all the projects, but the majority of them. So any of all the way, they act like a state DOT for federal lands projects. So that's who we are, and I just wanted to give a brief overview before we step into technical details. This is my team. What do we cover? Pavement performance. We just got a lot of the work here done at Georgia Tech. Looks like measuring pavement performance in the field: rutting, cracking, faulting, IRI, friction, surface texture, all that stuff. Pavement performance. Bob Ortmeyer, gentleman on the right. We call him Mr. Smoothie. IRI. Smoothness measurement, he's been the lead nationally for the last 10, 15 years. And then Andy Mergemeyer, I believe I heard Georgia Tech actually might have a part of a contract that Andy's leading related to rutting, cracking, faulting measurement.
Yeah,
Recently done contract.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, so y'all got a piece of that contract? Okay, so Andy's leading a lot of the national movement for rutting, cracking, faulting of pavements. Microtexture, he also does friction measurements from our team. I do pavement design, mechanistic empirical pavement design. Bob Conway does concrete, acceptance of pavements, quality assurance, PWL, payment for materials quantity, that's Dennis DeVorak. Pavement management, Luis Rodriguez, he's here locally. So just to give you a flavor of my team and what we do, we're kind of across the board, handle all things pavement materials. And with that, of interest here today is sustainability and how we wrap up into the sustainable payments program. And that's Ms. Jurado, and she's going to cover our sustainable payments program for Federal Highway. With that, Monica.
Today I wanted to talk a little bit about sustainability. What is sustainability? And then I'll go move on and talk about our sustainable payments program with Federal Highway. And I'll give you some details on what we're currently working and what we're going to be working in the future. So what is sustainability? How many of you here know the definition of sustainability? And I know I have it up here, but I would like to mention that Federal Highway does not have an official sustainability definition, but we sure like this one. And if you look down and see the year, 1987, usually lately we've been hearing sustainability. Oh, that's just a new phrase, that's just something new, or that's something the hipsters are doing. And it's really not, because there was a definition back in 87. The only thing, and so we like this definition, it's not our official definition, but we like it because it goes hand in hand with what we're working. We're trying to meet the needs of today without affecting the needs of the future generations. Why do we care? We also started thinking, with lower budgets, we talk about the gas tax and funding and budgets and, areas of expertise where I just heard that Georgia DOT, most of their employees are retiring, so we have new employees and new faces. And so we're thinking like, how can we sustain ourselves to meet our needs by still meeting the needs of the future? And so we know that we have limited resources and, the environment, some of these virgin aggregates and virgin materials that we're using for our systems are becoming scarce. So we need to look for options and what to include in there. And also, it's not a new thing, but there's an emphasis to be more sustainable. The mission and vision of our program is, to advance sustainability through design, construction, and maintenance. And our vision is, how are we going to get there? So we know that we have to first engage our stakeholders. That was our first step. And also education, going out and educating not only in academia or in industry, but also our state counterparts and letting them know, sustainability is not new, you're already doing it, let's just find a way to quantify it and make sure we're tracking what we're doing and keep moving these best practices that are working, and the ones that are not working, maybe finding other ways to make them work. And lastly, from education, we wanted to develop guidance and tools and get that from paper to practice, make that bridge. And we do understand that it takes small steps or baby steps. And I know we have great ideas and things, we see technology moving very fast, but we also know that we need to not only move as fast as technology is moving, but try to get there. And when you work with the government, sometimes those steps are a little bit smaller than when you're out working somewhere else. Like I talked about some of our major program activities, and we talked about engagement of stakeholders. We do have a Sustainable Payments Technical Working Group that was formed when our program was formed back in 2010. And this group consists of 20 members, and when it began in 2010, we had about 10 to 15 friends of the Technical Working Group. Now we're up to close to 300 friends. So it keeps on growing, and we're getting the word out there that we're here and this is what we're doing, and we're getting more friends. And we haven't updated to the number of members, but we have rotated some of our members. When it comes to providing technical guidance, we did develop the Towards Sustainable Payment System, a reference document, which I will talk about more into detail, and I have it here. And I will let you know where to get a free copy too if you're interested. And we recently published the Life Cycle Assessment reference document too, which I'll discuss in more detail. And then I talked about going from paper to practice. So with that, we know that this book is about 300 pages, so we wanted something that would be more practical. So we did some technical briefs, we did some webinars, and we also do other outreach activities such as this workshop or other webinars or other information that we get out there. Again, I have to repeat this because I don't want people to think, oh, Federal Highway defines sustainability as this. We do not have an official definition, but we do try to talk about all the challenges out in transportation and sustainability. And one of them being, the main one would be data collection or data analysis, or we're collecting so much data and what are we doing with this data? So that would be one of the biggest things. We also talk about some of the concepts, some of these engineering goals, and of course this graphic, if you're familiar with sustainability, you know we talk a lot about the three-legged stool, where sustainability is a group action that involves not only the economical aspects or environmental, but also the social. And sometimes in order to be truly sustainable, you have to meet all three or find ways to compromise and meet all three. We also have to take into consideration that opportunities to be more sustainable could be found at all stages of the payment life cycle. We can't only be sustainable at the beginning or at the end, such as of the extraction of materials and then not be sustainable throughout the rest of the project. We have to look in areas where we could find the opportunities to be sustainable in all life cycle steps. We're already using a lot of technologies. We did mention sustainability is not a new practice, so there are things that state DOTs or industry and academia are already doing in regards to being sustainable, such as warm mix asphalt, recycled asphalt shingles, and designing longer life pavements too. And so some of these, our counterparts in some situations are doing these sustainable technologies. They're just not calling them sustainable. And we're trying to find a way to know who's doing what and where, and then try to get these numbers on what we're doing and what are the benefits that they're getting from using these sustainable technologies. And I did say I was going to go over this Towards Sustainable Pavement System reference document, which is 11 chapters. And if you've had the chance to read this, it does read like an academic book, a textbook. But we did want to divide it into chapters where our counterparts or even our pavement and material engineers at every division office could pick it up, and in case they had a question in regards to design or construction, they could go to each specific chapter and get an idea or some guidance on where to go from there. Chapters 1 and 2 are very basic. It's an introduction. It talks about sustainability. It talks about some of the definitions that are already out there for sustainability, and it does mention the original definition that I had up on the screen earlier. And then chapter 2 kind of helps the party that's interested in defining their sustainability, kind of establishing some of the sustainable goals that they want to have. So once you know what sustainability is, then you go on into what are some of the goals that we want to meet? How do we quantify? How do we measure that we are actually being more sustainable? Chapter 3 talks more about materials, and it talks about all the ways where you could be, in your program, you could be more sustainable in incorporating sustainability practices into your program, such as recycling of aggregates or replacement of some other materials for some of the materials we're using. So it mainly talks about materials considerations. It does give some idea on where we could, it does give some goals. It'll give some example goals, such as saying the main one would be reduce the use of virgin material. But then it also talks about being sustainable does not mean we recycle everything and we're sustainable. Or we use some of these materials like recycled asphalt shingles. Those are not available in all areas, so it wouldn't be sustainable for me to try to bring RAS from another state because I'm using emissions and transportation, and it might not be the best sustainable technology to use in my state. So we are looking into all that in this chapter. Chapter 4 talks more about design, how to incorporate some of these design, these sustainable practices in the design. And one of the biggest one would be talking about specifications and helping state DOTs include these sustainable practices, letting them allow them to use recycled asphalt or warm mix asphalt, and helping them develop some of the specifications. Chapter 5 talks more about construction considerations, how to be more sustainable at the construction practice. And one of the things that we don't even take into consideration when we're talking about pavements is maybe some of the runoff. So it's also working with other disciplines within pavement and materials to incorporate some of these sustainable practices. Okay. Then we also talk about user phase. And this is a really big one when we talk about sustainability, because I know Georgia DOT, we talked about it being the 6th biggest division office and then having a $1.2 or $1.7 billion. But there are other states that don't have such a big program. And data collection or staffing and having the numbers of knowing how much it costs to close a lane mile, or how much these user costs, or how much does it cost to have people in traffic. Because traffic here is not the same as traffic somewhere else. Where I'm coming from, my friends complain In El Paso, they complain about 15 minutes sitting in traffic, where here you can sit up to 3 hours, or more sometimes, I hear. Then we talk about maintenance and preservation. How do we use some of these techniques that we're already using in maintenance, such as in-place recycling and others, to better our projects? And like in this chapter also talks about some of the construction of these maintenance and preservation programs by including some best practices, such as stockpiling. When we're stockpiling, what would be the best way to stockpile, or we have a different environment, such as, I guess, storage is a little bit more humid versus a drier climate, and other additives that we might need to add to keep these materials that we're stockpiling fresh and good to use. And also, not only are we being sustainable, but we're also producing a good product at the end of the day. Chapter 8 talks about end-of-life considerations, and like I said, we have 50 DOTs that we work with, plus Puerto Rico and DC, and they all have different definitions of what is end-of-life. So when does your payment actually, when do you consider it to be at the end? And we talk about, when would be a good, how do we quantify these numbers of these benefits that we're getting when we're not all looking at it at the same end of life? So it kind of gives an idea on like some stepping stones of where we have to get to try to quantify these numbers and these benefits. Chapter 9 talks more about a general, bigger, larger system, and it talks about considerations of other sustainable factors. So this is also where we also work with our other counterparts and other disciplines to try to make it a system sustainable, the whole big picture and not just a project level. This one works also very well with, we talked about federal lands taking care of the federal land projects, which are all projects to and from, and some parking lots to our national parks in some cases.